I don't know if you guys expected some sort of pithy intro. I'm usually pretty good for one of those, but being, I don't know, what, 12 days from primary election day as we record this, I got nothing. I don't know about you guys, but I finished work at 2:30 last night. So if you think you're going to get creative, Colin, today, or happy Colin today, you have gone to the wrong podcast. But the good news is we've got people on this panel who will bring a little bit more of that positivity, I hope. Here's looking at you, Carolyn and Michael, because I know I can't look at Chris for that, and I know I can't look at Mike at that for that. So we'll see how this all balances out. But the good news is we got lots of politics, lots of policy to cover. So let me get right into our introductions. We have returning Carolyn Schofield. She's the McHenry County representative and vice chair of CMAP, the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. She's also president of the McHenry County Mental Health Board, and she's been a candidate before. She's got policy expertise, so she's going to be able to get all of our topics this week. What's going on, Carolyn?
Oh, great to be back. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, we always one of our favorites, so we're glad to have you.
Thanks,
Speaking of
appreciate
one of
it.
our favorites, I like to give him a little grief, but we do really like Mike. We're glad to have Mike Shackel back. He's the supervisor for Lemont Township. He's a Republican committeeman there. He's also a financial consultant. He was president of the Chamber of Commerce in Lemont. Are you still, or were you formerly president there?
Formally.
Formerly. Okay. And was on the high school board of education. So again, somebody who wears 36 different hats. I think we've got a theme this week. Mike, I'm glad you could come back.
Thanks. Happy to be here and join everybody again.
Awesome. And we've got, as always, we've got Michael, we've got Chris. Michael's our Southern and Central Illinois expert. Chris is our expert on about a two township wide area, and that's it. But Michael's the one who covers more geographical ground. So Michael, you can go first. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, doing well.
You taking advantage of those mileage reimbursements?
It's that time of the year, isn't it?
Chris, how's it going in your little neck of the woods?
Butler's doubling his salary off of mileage reimbursements this fall.
Why not take advantage of
That's
it?
how Collin gets away with not giving him a raise or a bonus.
Do you assume Michael didn't get a raise just because you didn't get one?
Oh, I see.
All right, so we're going to do this. We kind of have a split 50-50 in our main topics this week between politics and policy. Since we know why you're here, we'll start with politics. We'll let you have dessert first, only if you promise me you'll stick around for the meat and the vegetables later. But let's get right into the dessert and let's talk politics. We'll go in the governor's race. We've been saying this for a bit on this podcast. Patrick Fingston on the Illinois said it this week. A few others have put it on social media. I don't know what's going on in this governor's race when everybody has known that Bailey has had a significant lead in this primary, and yet it seems like, for the most part, the other three contenders have just been sniping against each other. It comes across as if they're fighting for second. I understand the strategy is Bailey, focuses on downstate, and these guys think if they could just win the suburbs. The problem is it's a math problem. Three candidates in the suburbs. Darren mops up the rest of the state, which, by the way, in a Republican primary, the rest of the state is the main voting block. The math just never mathed, but here we are. A lot of people are questioning what's going on in the race and why has Bailey just been allowed to coast. But certainly works out for Bailey and his team. Latest polling, they've put out a poll on their own, or at least they've kind of hinted at it to people, that says they're well into the 50s. Let me see. I've got it in the notes here. Anybody remember what they had put out? I think Fingston put this out somewhere. I don't know. I'll find it and I'll bring it up. But they're talking about how they're in the lead, and the other candidates are still just sniping mostly at each other. So I don't get the strategy there. And here's the thing. We've said this over and over and over. Pritzker is vulnerable. All we care about is that we get the best possible candidate into the general election because Pritzker's vulnerabilities keep increasing. He was mentioned by Bill Clinton in a deposition in the Jeffrey Epstein case. It seems like they have presented proof that Clinton either misspoke accidentally, maybe, or whatever. But these are the things that stick. This is what people don't understand about politics. It's not the 37 or 40 different metrics where Illinois is in the bottom five or last. Nobody pays attention to that. Nobody cares about that. The things that win and lose elections are dumb things like the Epstein files and Pritzker's name being mentioned one time by a guy who's basically senile, or the Bears potentially leaving Illinois. Like those are the things that get people's attention because of people just don't pay attention in the social media era of politics. So these things keep popping up. You see the media kind of turning a little bit on Pritzker. They've been kissing his butt for 7 years, so it's nice to see them do a little bit of actual journalism. Pritzker is vulnerable, but we're still waiting to see if any of these candidates can show us they have what it takes to win. There's my intro. It's a free-for-all. What are your thoughts on the governor's race? Anybody can jump in.
I mean, I think that the story of the governor's race may, in the primary at least, may be, missed opportunity. If Bailey clocks in, above 50%, then, that's one thing. But if he wins this, and he's in the 40s and there's 60% of the electorate voting for somebody else, then that shows that, there should
You're
have been a
setting the
different
wrong
strategy.
expectation, Michael. I know you keep saying you think Bailey's going to be down there in the 40s. Chris, I know I don't agree with that. I don't know where you're at, Chris, but Bailey passed the 40s a while ago. I mean, in his own poll, I just found it. He said he was 58. That's an internal poll. I don't know that I agree with it, but I don't see Dabrowski, Heidner, or Mendrick getting into the 20s as you're talking about. Two, if not three of them are going to be in the teens or the single digits. So I think just by math, Bailey's going to be over 60%, not because people want Bailey because they're choosing him. It's just people seem to be forgetting basic math when it comes to this race.
But doesn't the basic math to some degree play? Because listen, this is an internal poll. We talked about the reliability of internal polls anyway. If basic math dictates that Bailey cannot possibly get, and if we believe that Bailey supports a mile wide and inch deep, which is what this podcast has been saying for a long time, don't we have to automatically assume that Dabrowski and Heidner, not Mendrick at this point, let's just be honest with ourselves, but like Dabrowski and Heidner have to increase from where they're at right now. Let's say they're at 15. They're not going to get 15% of the vote because they're going to get some of the undecided.
But what you can assume in a low information race, in a low name recognition race, you can rightfully assume that undecideds will break in the same ratio that decideds have broke. That's typically how it happens. So if you do the math, I'm happy to do it now based on whatever numbers you give me. I'll give you the math for what that means on election day. But it's not as if Heidner or Dabrowski are going to double their vote share. The undecideds will break the same ratio as decideds have. So I don't know where you're seeing this giant leap that you're expecting.
See, the argument that I had presented a couple podcasts ago, might have been 8 podcasts ago, the days blur into each other at this point, as you know, Colin. My point is that I do not believe that Darren Bailey has the strengths of support that he had in 2022.
Yeah, that's true.
And
you're not wrong.
And Dabrowski or Heidner, more likely Dabrowski, have that base of support within the Republican Party who are going to show up this year in an extremely low turnout election, and that will increase Ted Dabrowski's numbers or even Heidner's numbers. He's on TV. We'll see what the numbers actually are. I genuinely, and again, all of this is speculation. It's honestly wishful thinking if you're Ted Dabrowski or Rick Heidner at this point. But for the love of all things good, I want to see a public poll. And nobody will do this. Nobody wants to waste money on the stupid Republican primary for governor at this point. But I wish there was like a Fox 32 poll or a WGN poll or something like that where we could look at and say, okay, this is not an internal poll from one of the campaigns.
Yeah. Listen, Chris, I can tell you, I've got several polls that have not been published that I've got my hands on. Bailey's not at 58, but he is in the upper 40s. So here, let's do some quick math. All right. Would you agree that if we did a poll right now, the numbers would probably be something like this? Bailey 48, Dabrowski 15, Heidner 12, Mendrick 8. Are there any of those numbers you would have a major problem with?
I think Heidner would be higher than 12. I think Heidner and Dabrowski would be tied at 15. Call it that.
Okay, we'll say 15, which obviously then I think that's maybe being too generic to Mendrick, so we'll drop Mendrick to 7. So 48, 15, 15, 7. Is that, you comfortable with that?
Sure.
Okay, we're not saying that's exactly what it is, but that's pretty close to what I've seen in some of the polling. By the way, I don't think Heidner is as high as 15, and so at least he's not in the polls I've seen, but it could be true. If you extrapolate that to election day, that means Bailey wins with 56, Ted and Rick tie at 18, and Mendrick ends up at 8. That's what those numbers mean. So unless then you start talking about who can overperform or underperform, but most people are going to over or underperform based on turnout by 3 or 4%. So again, you need somebody, Heidner or Dabrowski need to triple their vote totals there, which you're not going to do based on just turnout. Like that's where we're at in this race right now.
And you might be right. All of my wishful thinking over the last couple of weeks has been trying to justify the fact that Darren Bailey has no grassroots support this time. In the Chicagoland area, Butler.
Two things can be true at the same time. You are correct, but because none of the other candidates have stepped up and taken that opportunity, the old voters will have no choice but to vote for the name they know. And right now, the only candidate with real name recognition is Bailey. So I'm not saying they're choosing; they're backing into it. You're right about that. But I don't think Bailey campaign's going to care as long as they get the vote.
I have seen some effort. I think Danny Suri out of Aurora has been doing a lot of work in this regard, has been trying to sound the alarm, talking about the problems that are in the Darren Bailey campaign and the problems that Bailey presents the party in a general election. It's just, I don't know why none of the campaigns are doing it's foreign to me, in fact, because like Dabrowski attacked Heidner a couple times up until this point, which makes sense. Heidner takes a little bit out of Dabrowski's support in the suburbs. Sure, he's not Bailey and he's in the suburbs, but Darren Bailey has a lot that all of these candidates could go at him for, and he's not even showing up to debates at this point. And he's just kind of coasting here. He's sitting on like $100,000, and this is this is who's going to win the primary for governor.
But listen, even the one message they have done against Bailey is, we can win, he can't. They haven't even made that message overly convincingly. Give me some reason why you say that. Here, I'll do it for you. Here, you know what? We're 2 weeks out from Election Day. I can release a poll we did that we never released out there because I didn't want somebody thinking that we were trying to put a thumb on the scale. We try to be objective here, but it's 2 weeks out. No one's going to care. So here's some data. I'll tell you straight up. So in a head-to-head matchup, Pritzker against Bailey, we had him down 14. Emerson had him down 20, which means Bailey's going to lose by 18 if you project that out to Election Day. It's an 18-point loss on Election Day. Bailey was down 30 with moderates. He was down 13 with independents. He's down 17 with Hispanics. He's down 23 with young people. He's down 21 with females. This is what one of the other campaigns should have been talking about. It's not enough to just be like, well, we can win, he can't. No one went out and gave us the why on that. So they wondered why it didn't resonate. Well, you didn't tell us why. We know on this podcast because we're political nerds, but there was never any juice to that message. It's right here. I mean, Bailey's losing to Pritzker amongst moderates by 30%. Tell me how you're going to win an election in Illinois that way. Tell me, Bailey and Del Mar and all of your backers who keep telling us that all you got to do is ramp up turnout. Tell me how you're going to turn out enough Republicans to make up a 30-point gap amongst moderates, which, by the way, is the biggest voting bloc in the state. Tell me how you're going to pull that out. How are you going to win losing Hispanics by 17, young people by 23, even independents who lean right, you're losing by 13. Tell me how you're going to win with those numbers. Nobody even did that message, which it wasn't my job to do their job for him, but fine, I'll put it out here. That's a more compelling message than you've heard against Bailey than any of the other campaigns, and I'm not running for office.
Well, Collin, what they're going to say. No, Mike, go ahead. Mike, go ahead. I want to hear
I think it's even more simpler than that. I don't know about the rest of you guys, but the questions I get is, Mike, who are all these other guys? We know who Darren Bailey is. Nobody knows who. Yeah, nobody knows him. I mean, Mendrick gets a little bit because we're, 2 pages next to us. So, I mean, but other than that, I think it's just more simpler than that. Nobody knows who they are.
Yeah, listen, and it's a travesty because honestly, each of the other 3 candidates have a lot to provide here. I mean, you've got Mendrick has done very well in the debates. He's got a lot to bring to the table. Yep. Heidner, with his business background, certainly has a lot he can bring to the table. And Dabrowski, with his policy chops, again, I don't agree with all of them, but he certainly brings knowledge to the table that Republicans could utilize. Heck, they've been using his website for years as a source. Each of these people have something to bring. I wish we had a race where we could have been looking at these 4 candidates and evaluating who was the best option. But because, as you said, Mike, voters don't really know the other 3 alternatives at this point. Again, Bailey's just going to back into the win.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that, Bailey's got all the name ID. People don't know these other candidates. None of them have really, presented a clear contrast or had the money to get that message out there. And I think there's a lot of people that I hear from across the state that are desperate for an alternative to Bailey because they recognize what you're saying, Collin, that, he's going to probably lose by even more than what he lost last time. And last time was bad enough. But the issue is that people
right now, Michael, right now the projection's 18 points. That would be the biggest win for somebody running for governor since Edgar in 94. And I've been saying this for a while. J.B. Pritzker is no Jim Edgar. He does not deserve to win by 18%, but that's the current projection based on the data. That's where this is headed, which is a massive blowout. And that kills us down ballot. In a lot of these suburban districts where Bailey massively underperforms, that kills us in some of these districts. I'm looking at the numbers. We've said them before. Senate District 26, Rauner won it by 11 in the race he lost. Bailey lost it by 10. That's a 21% swing. Don DeWitt's district, 33. It's an 11-point swing. Same with Seth's district, 11. Amy Grant's, they want to hold on to 47. Yeah, that's a 17-point swing between Bailey and Rauner. Marty McLaughlin, an 18-point swing. A lot of these districts aren't just in play. They're in serious, serious trouble unless Bailey can dramatically increase these numbers. Yet, you look at his bus tour, he's not even showing up in the suburbs. You look at their public comments, they're telling us they don't care about swing voters. They don't care about the suburbs. They just think ramp up the base. To me, that says, okay, great. Now we're going to lose 2, 3, 4, 5 more seats in the legislature, if not more. This is the problem. We're going over the cliff and nobody seems to care.
Yeah. And I think part of your problem is just how you described it. I mean, Dabrowski's a policy wonk. Mendrick's law and order. And Hydra's got business experience. If you could put all those together in a one candidate, but because you can't, and they're kind of in those silos, I think that's another reason why they haven't really gotten anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that kind of aggravated me, and thankfully the Dabrowski campaign did a little bit about it this week, but all these people from up north say, oh, it's downstate, it's Bailey country. Everybody loves Darren Bailey. He's going to get, 80% of the vote in all these counties. And it's like, well, he ran against Mike Bost, and Mike Bost, in some of these counties, Mike Bost beat him by, 30, 40, 50 points. And, St. Clair and Randolph and Monroe and Franklin and Jefferson. And it's like, well, they should have been taking advantage of that, because don't just write us off. Because Bailey primaried our congressman, and he was actively involved in primarying Terry Bryant, Dave Severin, etc. In the last
wanted to primary Jason Plummer. Yeah,
there's no.
There were lanes for votes out of the suburbs, but they all, again, based on fighting each other, they're also just fighting each other for the same voters too. And again, the Bailey campaign just like, okay, cool, go ahead. Why would they stop them? Couple other developments just to make sure we keep our audience in the know, and then we'll go to our next topic unless anyone has any final thoughts. J.B. Pritzker is not out with his first ad. He's on his second TV ad. I'm curious as to why he's doing this. Number one, it could be that he's trying to raise his favorables at the same time as he's using his name to try to get Stratton across the finish line. So it could just be that they think this might help Stratton, keeping Pritzker's positives out there. It could be that he's trying to distract from some of the negatives that have hit lately about him, which again, I think are in reality small potatoes, but you know how the internet works. People like the fantastic and the things that have just a slight tie to reality. So maybe it's distracting from that, or maybe he's getting his positives out now because he's going to attack the Republican nominee and go negative on them on election night, which is frankly what I would do. And it's what the Dems tend to do, is bury us before we can even get our feet under us. So maybe that's what he's doing, but don't ignore the fact that J.B. Pritzker is up with his second TV ad already. Don't ignore that. It's relevant. I don't yet know why he's doing it, but there's a reason. Pritzker doesn't just do stuff. All right, last thing, A1s, just in the last week. I got to give credit where it's due. Dabrowski has really ramped up his fundraising. He raised, in the last week, he reported A1s over 215,000, including 100K from Todd Ricketts and his wife. That's a big get. So again, it's obviously late in the race, but that is huge. So kudos to Dabrowski. That's real fundraising. Love to see that. Heidner raised another 36K in the last week. 25 of that is from himself. Bailey's raised only 12K in the last week. Mendrick has not reported any A1s. So you continue to see weak fundraising from Bailey and Mendrick. Heidner continues to do his thing, and then Dabrowski had a really good week. So again, just keeping you all informed, since you probably don't watch A1s like we political nerds. All right, seems like everybody's good in the gov race. Everyone get your thoughts out. Everybody's happy.
No, I'm happy. No, not happy.
All right, let's go to the U.S. Senate race. This one's gotten interesting. We'll talk about the Dem side first, and then we'll close talking about the Republican side. There's been several polls. They're basically internal polls, even though both of them were conducted by outside entities. But because they're hitting the same universe as those campaigns, you can treat them as if they are internal polls. Stratton's backers put out a poll that had her up, what is it, 3? Which is significant movement for her. And then immediately after that, Raja put out his latest internal poll that has him up 10. Brendan Moore with a good point on social media. The pollster that did Raja's poll had it 42-14 in December. Now they have it 36-26. So even Raja's own pollster has him dropping 6 points and Stratton gaining 12. So definite movement. As for where this race actually is, I've not seen a reliable poll that I could say, yeah, that's independent. We can trust that. My guess is you average these polls, you probably look at that's probably in the realm of being correct, that Raja's up maybe 5-ish, but that's just a guess. You see a lot of closing ads here. Stratton has her closing ad. If you haven't seen it, it's dramatic. It's fire. She burns a photo of Donald Trump. There's dramatic music. She talks about hate and dictators. And the part of me that wants our rhetoric to calm down really did not like that ad. The part of me that likes good political ads has to admit it's a really good ad. I'd imagine that does pretty well for her. She had another ad that Pritzker was in via the PAC. Pritzker's PAC dropped another, I think, $4 million, it looks like, into that PAC. Then you have the crypto PAC running ads against Stratton, and they're using Madigan in those ads. I wonder if they hired those consultants on the Republican side who just use Madigan for everything, and that's what happened here. I don't know, just a guess. And then a pro-Raja group is boosting Kelly, running ads to boost Robin Kelly, because they believe that the more votes Kelly gets, the less that Stratton gets. So some really interesting developments here towards the end of the campaign. What are you guys all thinking or hearing about the U.S. Senate race on the Dem side?
So I'm hearing that every Democratic operative I talk to says they'd rather be Stratton right now than Raja, and I agree with that. I've been saying that for a while now. We've all talked about how Raja has a ceiling. He's hit that ceiling. The polling from the Gov Association, should it be believed 100%? No. I don't know if Stratton's necessarily in the lead right now. I think that's the wrong thing to say. Yeah. But she does have all of the momentum going into the election day in these last 12 days. She does. And she is running the type of campaign that should win this primary. It's the ads that I get for Raja are still focusing heavily on ICE, which is fine, but that's also a month and a half ago's story. It seems like because Stratton got her campaign started later, which was a bad thing, she shouldn't have started this thing. But the benefit that she does have by starting, she allows her ads to actually reflect what the Democratic primary electorate is thinking at any given time. So you can kind of move away. She still talks about ICE. Don't get me wrong. She still talks about ICE, but it's not as heavy on that like Raja's were or still are for that matter.
True.
In addition, the pushing of Kelly, I think, is too late. I think that you needed Kelly to be stronger a month ago or a month and a half ago, and then you could have kept Stratton out of winning this race for good. Could Raja still win? Yes. I don't think anybody disagrees with the idea that Raja could still win this, but if you genuinely wanted to use Robin Kelly as a Manchurian candidate, which is what I thought she was from the beginning, it's what a lot of people thought she was from the beginning.
I still think she is.
Still think she is. If she was supposed to be that, you needed her super strong, not super strong, but you needed her strong a month and a half. You needed her to be a viable campaign. And frankly, Robin Kelly's never been a viable campaign. I think she'll do pretty decent in my neck of the woods because I'm pretty close to Robin Kelly's district. But outside of that, maybe she gets some support amongst Arab Americans. She does have the furthest left position on Palestine and Gaza. Maybe, but she doesn't really have a base in this race. She hasn't carved a niche out for herself other than tearing away some of the black vote and maybe some of the white vote, maybe. But that also, I think, hurts Raja Krishnamurthy. So I think if I'm a Democratic operative and I have the choice to choose what campaign I want to ride out for the last 12 days of this campaign, I'm taking Giannoulias Stratton 10 out of 10 times.
Well, the betting markets back you up. I mean, that's where the betting money is going right now heavily. So you're not wrong. I mean, here's what I would say to those who watch this. This race, So was the Republican race for governor, too. But what we're learning this cycle, or what you should be learning, is the lesson of timing. Because timing in politics is everything. You're seeing it in the gov race, where a lot of the Republican candidates started too late. You're seeing it in this Democratic Senate race, where the Stratton attacks against Raja started too late. It may not matter, but they definitely started too late. Raja's attacks on Stratton, or Raja's attempts to boost Kelly, started too late. Raja peaked too early. Like, you're seeing a lot of things that, frankly, you should learn from if you're watching this podcast. We all should, about the importance of timing in politics. I teach a whole class on momentum and how it's important to peak at the right time when it comes to politics. And you're seeing most of these campaigns either peak too late or too early. And that's it's not a rookie mistake, but it is certainly an intermediate mistake. This is something that good campaigners understand, that you can peak way too soon or way too early, and it can cost you an election. And in Raj's case, Chris is right. He peaked too early, and he's not been able to not only sustain, but grow that momentum. They've sort of stayed with the same sort of stale message. It gives people a chance to look at some of the other candidates and go, well, you know what? I'm going to flirt with some of the others. And then some of the others give them something they like to hear more. Again, Raj's support was a mile wide and an inch deep, so it was easy for them to change their support. And this was a mistake on the Raja side, which may not cost them on election day, because, again, Stratton did start hitting him too late. But at this point, I'm with Chris. I'd take Stratton. I'm not a big betting man, but if I was, I'd be on those betting markets putting all my cash on Stratton at this point. She's got all the momentum.
And I also think, because you and I talked about this last year, Colin, because Raja was running a lot of different ads early. And some of those ads were really, really strong. And you don't see Raja's strong ads as much as you see Raja's weak ads.
Yep.
And I don't know who's making the decisions over there. I really don't. I will give Raja a little bit of credit here. It does seem like he's trying to do some like weird, hyper-localized grassroots stuff. He's doing like meet and greets with mayors. He's doing like meet and greets downstate.
That's what you have to do. When your numbers are soft, you've got to do the hard work to make them less soft. So that's what you got to do.
Right, but I also think, like, I just saw him start rolling these things out like a week ago.
Yeah.
So
sure.
where was this the rest of the campaign? Maybe it was there and I missed it. But like, I've just noticed a lot of this stuff in the last week from Raja, where he's doing a Southwest Suburban Mayor's meet and greet. He's going down with Representative Chung down in the Bloomington Normal area. He's doing something with her.
He was doing a lot of it, but he just wasn't promoting it. And I think, Chris, to your point, this was all airwaves. This was all paid advertising, which is why the support was a mile wide and an inch deep. I've had numerous photos sent to me of polling places around the Chicagoland area where there are zero Raja signs outside the early voting place. Like, there's not that grassroots momentum behind it, because that really wasn't built. And this is what we talk about in politics. You have to have both. You've got to have a good message and air game, but you also have to have a good ground game. If you do only one or the other, like the Bailey campaign has an incredible ground game, at least they have a better ground game than the other Republicans, but no air game. If you don't have both, you can't win in today's politics. Raj is the exact opposite. A great air game, but there's very limited ground game, and at this point, it may be what costs him the nomination.
And last point of mine, because it's this Chris and Colin show right now, and I apologize to our viewers. I apologize for our guests. But there's a big push right now in the Democratic Party that it can't be Raja. And I think, listen, there are Democratic like Twitter accounts that you can pay off to support you. This is a well-known like open secret. You can do this. A lot of campaigns do it. And all of those campaigns are progressive, and they're back in Giuliana, and they're telling their voters, their supporters, you need to vote for Giuliana Stratton. It cannot be Raja Krishnamurthy. They're tearing Raja down. Actually, I think this is somewhat, wrong, but like they're tearing him down as like he's a conservative Democrat. He's a moderate. He's not. But if that's how they're tearing him down on social media, so Stratton actually has. Is it natural? No, but she has a social media presence in a way that like Raja doesn't. Okay, she has people who are pushing her. And social media matters in Democratic politics. They push digital organizing a lot in the last 6 years of Democratic politics. And when Giuliana has that and Raja has none of it, I mean, that could matter on election day.
Yeah. Well, I think Raja has tried to stake out his space Kind of like, I mean, you saw this in Texas. I always butcher his name, but James, it's Tellerico, right? Am I getting that right?
Tellerico, correct.
Yeah,
Yes,
I got it
sorry.
right. Okay. I mean, there's all these stories about how he won with this more positive message, and The Hill did an excellent story. I saved it, talking about how his victory is more about style than ideology, because he's just as far left as Jasmine Crockett, and Raja is almost as far left as Stratton. Not all the way, but almost as far left as Stratton. But Raj does a better job. I've said this for a long time. He does a better job sounding like a moderate. Does a better job speaking like a moderate, even though his policy positions don't actually back that up. It's the same thing that you saw with Tellerico in Texas. There's clearly a push in the Democratic Party for this, but you still got to win a Dem primary. That was never going to be the right way to win a Democratic primary. It's why, Stratton, I'm glad to hear Dems want Stratton, because obviously I know her record well, since we'll likely be facing off with her in the general election. She is as far left as they come. She's the most progressive nominee Illinois has ever seen. So if Dems think that's their best choice, we will happily take that matchup.
For me.
All right. We keep pausing, letting anybody else jump in, but if you want to just...
Well, I was just going to say one thing on the Democratic primary is that also kind of connects with the previous topic. We've seen some rhetoric from the Congressional Black Caucus. They're very critical of Pritzker for putting his thumb on the scale in support of Stratton, because obviously Kelly is, kind of one of their own. So it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts Pritzker. And maybe that's part of the reason why he's running all these positive ads about himself at the same time, because he's getting some pressure from within his own party. Some people that aren't happy with him about, him backing Stratton as hard as he is.
Could be. I mean, on its face, the CBC stuff about Kelly versus Stratton is it's kind of ridiculous, because Pritzker's backing a black woman. But it does raise the stakes for Pritzker, because if he doesn't win this, somebody else made this point not that long ago, so forgive me if I'm not giving credit where it's due, but I agree that, Pritzker has to win this primary now. Chris and I have been saying it for a while, but now he has to, because if he's the one who angered the Congressional Black Caucus by going against Kelly, only to not actually get his black female across the finish line, that's going to be a serious liability for him if he wants to run nationally. So,
well, especially in a South Carolina Democrat primary, right? Which is one of the first ones. If he's running for president and Congressional Black Caucus comes out, endorses one of his opponents in South Carolina, and says you got to get out and vote for this person, it could be dead on arrival for Pritzker right out of the gate. That's what saved Biden in 2020.
Yeah, it's certainly something that raises the stakes even further, which makes you wonder why he's cutting such, for him at least, small checks to the Stratton PAC. People expected him to just bury the field in cash, and he keeps cutting. $10 million is a lot of money, don't get me wrong, but for Pritzker, that's not. A lot of people wondering why he's sort of, only one-cheeked this instead of two-cheeked it. All right, that's a good transition to the Republican side of the race. You've got some movement here. The two main candidates, Don Tracy, who everybody knows we work with, and Jeannie Evans. Evans has put out a few mailers. Seems like, again, they're only really hitting Cook County or the Chicago DMA, as is being said. So certainly something interesting worth watching. Don Tracy's put out mailings of his own. Got some videos, some ads, and other things that are hitting. Obviously, I can't talk too much about numbers, but there's a reason why a lot of people feel confident about Tracy in this race. Certainly getting a lot of support from throughout the state. But, there's a certain keyboard warrior, social media warrior, who gave out a tacit support of Jeannie Evans on social media this week. So I'm sure that's going to change the entire tenor of the race, because this individual only backs winning candidates, right? Right, Michael? Right? He's got a good track record. His candidates always win.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so looks like, again, this is objective analysis that Tracy's looking good in the race. But Jeannie is, making a move here. Again, I'll believe it when I see she actually has support from within the state. She's tried to attack Don for all of his endorsements. Problem is, Jeannie doesn't have a footprint in the state. A lot of out-of-state consultants even, not a lot of volunteers in the state, no endorsements in the state. Listen, I do think she's someone who has a potential future, but you can't sort of fly in from California and not really do any politics in Illinois and then expect to be the U.S. Senator from Illinois. That isn't really how this works, but certainly appreciate anybody new step into the plate on the Republican side.
Well, and I think it's obvious that the people that are supporting her are the people that don't like Dawn.
Yeah.
It's not affirmative support like, oh, Jeannie, you're a great candidate. I really like your speech. I'm gonna go out and that's not what's happening here. It's just oh, last minute Hail Mary. We got 12 days left. It looks like Dawn's gonna win. We don't want Dawn, so we're gonna back whoever we think, has at least a couple dollars to her name. Because the other candidates, I mean, they're digging in the couch cushions for gas money so they can drive around the state.
Yeah.
And some of the people that are endorsing, I mean, I don't know, like some endorsements aren't worth, having. And I think Jeannie's going to learn that the hard way.
Well, when you're not from the state, you're not
You
involved
don't
in
know
politics
it.
of the state, when your consultants, other than maybe one or two, aren't from the state and your staff aren't from the state, they just don't know. I mean, you look at their mailers too. Like the issues are all DC speak. I mean, each of these mailers is copy paste from typical DC style mailers where they send 300 of the same ones to various clients throughout the country. Even the issues half the time have nothing to do with actual issues in Illinois that are resonating. But they're just, again, some sort of quick Google. What should we say on this mail piece? What do we think Illinois voters are going to like?
Oh no, even worse than that. I mean, the one negative text that she sent out about Dawn a week and a half ago, 74% of it was written by AI. So it's not even Google. It's like Chat GPT. What should I say? Oh,
Yeah.
okay, sounds good.
Yeah, let's talk about the head tax, the Chicago head tax, because that's really moving votes in a Republican primary statewide.
We're going to promote new jobs and, crush the cost of living. It's like, oh, some like computer wrote this, obviously, because no real people talk like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and obviously on the Tracy side, because of some of these people who dislike him, who have sort of made this more of a race than it ever should have been, now Tracy's having to do a little bit of a contrast here, spend a little extra money, which means that's money that could have been used in the general election. So as usual, Republicans are, circular firing squad hurting ourselves. But hey, Del Mar put out his Palatine Township sample ballot for Jeannie Evans. So party unity. All right, U.S. Senate race we've covered. One more political race, then we get to get into policy. So I know some of y'all are here for policy. We'll get into that very soon. Let's talk about the Illinois comptroller race. We've talked about timing being the theme of this 2026 primary. Well, here's another example of it. Susana Mendoza has endorsed Holly Kim. She's done a few videos for Holly Kim. Some are good, some are not so good. They're trying to be folksy and interesting. I think Susana plays it a little bit better than Holly's been able to pull it off, but Holly's newer to this, so that's fine. But trying to find their lane. But my question to you, Chris, or to anybody is why do it 2 weeks out? I don't understand why Mendoza would jump into this race 2 weeks out. I know people are putting out numbers that say that Holly Kim is close in this race, but I haven't seen any numbers that back that up. So why do this late? If you were going to jump in and you want to put your thumb on the scale, why not let Holly Kim use your name for 2 months instead of just 2 weeks? I don't quite follow.
I don't know. I know I'm supposed to be the political expert. I got nothing here. Like, everybody knew Susana Mendoza wanted Holly Kim to win this race. She was in TV interviews where she was like, I really like Holly Kim. Isn't she the best? I think she'd be a fantastic state comptroller. And then there's other candidates in the race, and nobody cares about them. So everybody knew Susana wanted Holly Kim. I don't know why they didn't lead with this, because maybe they didn't want to upset Pritzker. Maybe they're that afraid of him, where it's like, oh, if Susana supports this candidate, Pritzker supports this other one, it's going to cause conflict in the party. But that's never stopped Susana before, so I don't know. I don't have I don't have the answer to this question, and it feels to me like, as much as I think of all the candidates in the race, I think Holly Kim is the best one for the Democrats. I think you agree with that, whatever. But I think that they expected Holly Kim to get more momentum early against Margaret Croke, but Croke has just kind of sucked up all of the air out of this race because she's got the TV ads, she's got Pritzker's backing, she's got the Cook County Dems endorsement. It matters. And I don't think Holly Kim got any traction. So this is their way of like, okay, we're finally going to roll out Susana, see if we get any traction here. And what votes do you gain from that? You pull off some Latino support, but half of Latinos don't like Susana Mendoza. You pull off some white working class support, but how much is that going to exist in this Democratic primary electorate? I I don't know. I don't know, Colin.
Well, it takes time to burn a message in. So, like, even if you ran this nonstop for 2 weeks on TV, I don't know that it would still completely penetrate enough by election day, especially when many Dems vote before election day. So, I don't know. Again, it's another timing thing where it's another coulda, shoulda from another candidate who will have to wonder after election day if they had just done things earlier, would they be, celebrating on March 17th instead of drinking for a different reason?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and I think it matters even more in a Democrat primary because they're more inclined to vote by mail, vote early than a Republican primary voter. So if you're running in a Democrat primary, you got to get that out early. You can't, do it 2 weeks out because so many people have already voted. But I would say like downstate, and not I don't know how much it really matters in a Democrat primary because there's not a lot of Democrats left down here anymore. But Holly Kim has made some inroads. She's got signs out. I think I just saw my first Margaret Croak sign like this past Saturday. So like she has nothing down here, but Holly Kim at least is, seems to be, getting some downstate Dem traction, which makes sense, especially if Susana Mendoza is kind of, at least giving her phone numbers to call or something.
I mean,
Helping
listen,
make
the
those
only endorsement I
connections.
care about in this race is who is Dick Bigger backing in the Democratic primary, which I haven't
Yeah.
seen him come out with an endorsement,
He's a
but
big Mendoza fan, isn't he?
yeah,
So
yeah.
maybe he's right on Holly Kim's
I'm just
bandwagon.
making a joke, but I mean, Holly Kim has more of a grassroots presence, so it's certainly something that could have been built on, and she'll overperform the polls because of that. I just Croak has so many institutional advantages at this point. It seems like the race is pretty over.
I just want to say on all of these, I've been quiet because around here, I don't know if it's just around here or if people are just sleepy in this campaign cycle because I feel like there's been nothing really going on.
Mhm.
And everyone I feel like has been behind on it. So, in comptroller, it's an office too. I mean, let's be honest, that's not like the most sought after glamorous office there that the people don't go to the polls to vote for the
Yeah.
comptroller. They're going to vote for something else, and then that kind of is on the ballot. So, if you don't make it stand out and the office itself, and then how does the individual stand out? I mean, that one in particular, I've seen nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
around here, I haven't really even seen the governor. Everyone's been sleepy.
Yeah, you're right. I will tell you, building out these agendas week by week, and me, Chris, and Michael finding enough to talk about in these political campaigns has been a little bit of a struggle because almost all of them have been weak. Almost all of them have been behind and sleepy. It's one of the sleepiest campaign cycles we've seen, which is why Chris has been predicting turnout will be low or even a record low. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Chris, but he's probably not wrong because, Carolyn, you're right. This has been a very sleepy election cycle.
And I think because of that, you're going to see this is bad for the Republican Party. And we're going to have a topic coming up here that's really, really bad for the Republican Party. But one thing that I think is going to be bad for the Republican Party outside of like these statewide races, because of extremely low turnout, you're going to see poor candidate over performances up and down the ballot. You could. Okay. Low turnout could also benefit a lot of good candidates who do have the ability to get their message out to the polls. But I worry that because things are so sleepy top of the ticket, it's very hard to project how this electorate's actually going to play.
Yeah, yeah, could be right. All right, let's get into policy. Our guests have endured enough with our political discussions, so let's get into some things that probably matter a lot more to the lives of the people that we're trying to make better here in our politics. Chris just mentioned it. I hate talking national politics. I'm going to get a headache here, just guarantee it. But everybody wanted to talk about it, and they're not wrong. This is certainly something we should talk about because it will have an impact on our politics. We got to talk Iran. Uh, Everybody has feelings. Our Discord blew up, pun intended, when this all started off. So I guess I have a couple thoughts, but I don't have much. So I'm going to let those of you who feel really passionately about this carry the topic. Because Chris, I know you feel really strongly, so you can kick us off. Go ahead.
It is incredibly frustrating when I have talked for years about how the Republican Party of 15 years ago needed to die, and how the Republican Party of 15 years ago were a bunch of losers who were more focused on shipping our, young men and women off to war than they were about winning elections. I've been saying that for years. And Patrick Finkston has given me crap about it because he believes that America's role in the world is to be a policeman of the world, and that's what the Republican Party is supposed to stand for. He's entitled to that opinion. But it's frustrating when the Republican Party finally figures out the messaging that the American people do not want to go to war, that the American people have routinely punished politicians who have plunged this country into war and have sent their sons and daughters off to foreign places where they can't even find on a map to go die for causes that they don't particularly understand. And part of the reason why Trump and Vance got elected, both in 2016 and 2024, was because that they were bucking the foreign policy establishment in this country. That so many people were sick and tired of the Hillary Clintons of the world who think that we need to start bombing countries because it's in our national interest, or the John McCains of the world who just feel like we need to go to war for any reason necessary. They were bucking that establishment. The Republican Party was taking the reins of the non-interventionist movement that Obama had, and they took it over and they won elections using that messaging. And now they are spitting in the face of every single person who voted for them off of those reasons. The Trump administration this week claimed that the justification for this war was that they were ending Iran's 47-year forever war against the United States. And the exact term forever war is what they have been campaigning against, because forever war is synonymous with things like the Iraq war or Vietnam, insanely unpopular foreign entanglements that nobody supported by the end of that. So when you start saying things like that, the administration feels the need to spit into the face of every single one of their supporters who didn't want to go to war in the first place with Iran, because nobody understands why we're going to war with Iran. The polling indicates that 27% of people actually want to go to war right now. 27%. 27%. So they're taking this extremely unpopular issue, putting it to the forefront, and not understanding why the Republican Party keeps ticking down and down and down into the polls. And there's no end in sight here. It doesn't seem like they had any idea what they were doing here. They expected Iran to just roll over and die within 24 hours. That didn't happen. The Iranians closed the Straits of Hormuz. We're now apparently going to taxi ships through the strait, but the U.S. Navy apparently said that they can't do that. They don't have the resources to do it. So the world economy is going to come to a close. Projections are a barrel of oil is going to cost $150 by the end of this. What's the benefit here? How does the United States benefit from it? How does the Republican Party benefit from this? Every day this war goes on is votes that the Republican Party is losing in the November election. And somebody needs to tell the Trump administration that, or every single person on this podcast is screwed going into November, because nobody wants this war.
Yeah, the only thing I'm going to clarify here, Chris, just there's a lot that you said that I agree with, but just because I always want to make sure our audience gets the truth. The Strait of Hormuz, I never say that right. Iran mostly ships that to China. So that being closed actually screws China way more than any of us. I think the U.S., like 2 or 3% of their oil goes to the U.S. So it's the only thing I'll clarify is this isn't going to be that huge of an impact as everyone's saying, like, you know, people like, go get gas before Monday. It'll be $30. Chill on that. But all the rest of what you said, Chris.
What? Gas went up $1 overnight, Collin. It was $2.59. Now it's $3.59 at the Speedway down the street.
It's been in the mid threes up by me for months, but whatever. Either way, the larger point is that, you know, what do we gain by this? What's the plan? I mean, we were told this would be 24 hours, 48 hours. Now we've got Hegseth coming out saying, well, it could be, what did he say? 4 weeks, could be 8 weeks, it could be months. So as you said, there wasn't really a plan. And now today, this got me to roll my eyes. Trump said he has to be involved in the selection of the new Iranian leader, because that always goes well in the Middle East. They love it when the U.S. picks their leaders. It's just, I don't know how much of this was thought through or how much of this was they just took too much of their testosterone pills or their protein shake that morning and said, oh, let's go bomb somebody. But the reality is it doesn't seem to have been overly thought out. And Chris's point is valid. Some of the biggest demographics that shifted towards Trump and Republicans in this last election were younger Americans, Gen Z, millennial, and those people are now shifting dramatically away from Republicans. They're not going to Democrats. They're becoming even more independent, which tells you there's a problem with both parties. But the reality is these kinds of things are definitely hurting Trump and Republicans. Chris is right on that.
Okay, so you want the devil advocate position on
Go
this?
for it. We want some disagreement on this podcast. Everyone's been too nice.
So obviously, anytime you go to war, it's a failure of the human condition, right? And but you'd also argue that sometimes it's necessary. How about simply that presidents sometimes have to make decisions that may be politically unpopular to Chris's position? I don't know that I've seen the evidence like most of us haven't, but what I try to do, I try to pay attention to the experts. I'll put that in quotation marks, right? Not the politicians who are making campaign ads out of this. Um, and a lot of them have said to a person that again, the Iranians have developed the capability, had acquired 1,000 new missiles, and they had done all these terrible things that everybody, Republicans and Democrats, have always said it's bad. They can't have the nuclear weapon. They can't have these weapons. They can't have this, can't have that. So on the devil advocate side of this, all right, so maybe based on what the president saw, he made that decision. I mean,
listen, Mike.
at least I gotta hope that's the case, right?
Yeah, there's an argument here. This is why I've struggled with Maduro and now the Ayatollah. People who want the president to go through Congress, I get that. I'm a big limited government guy, so I understand that. The problem is right now, you want to get anything through Congress. Good luck with that. And so I understand those people who are saying, listen, the president's got to get something done. I hate it, but this is not just the problem of the executive. This is also a problem with Congress, where their inability to do anything, get anything done, their hyper-partisanship, it leads to situations where your executive from either party can say, you know what? Fine. I mean, Obama, Biden did it. Bush did it a little bit way back in the day. Trump has done it. Like, the more that Congress has become useless, the more the executive says, well, you know what? Fine, screw you. And I don't like it. Let me be clear. I don't like it. But Mike, you're making a solid point that the Trump administration may have said here, you know what? Something needs to be done. I'm going to go do it, whether it's popular or not. It is a valid position. And let's be clear, the Ayatollah was a bad dude. I don't think anybody is sad that he's gone. I've not seen a single person, well, other than a few crazies on the left who just hate Trump enough that they, suddenly now they're waving the Iranian flag. But the reality is, that part of it, I think a lot of people can get on board with. It's what else? What is the plan here? What are we trying to accomplish?
I'm going to add on that too. I think they're smart enough. Hope they're smart enough to not make the same mistakes that Bush Cheney made.
Hope.
Right?
Yeah, hope.
Not engage in nation building, because beyond Bush and Cheney and other attempts at it, Clinton and Somalia and the rest of the places, it doesn't go well when you try to nation build, right? It hasn't gone well since World War II. Well, that probably was the last example of trying to build a nation, meaning Europe, after World War II. That did go reasonably well. I don't think they're going to make that, and I make that decision, and I believe that within a short period of time they'll wrap things up and be gone. I don't know.
Hope is the right word, but yeah, I hear
you. But to Chris's point too, politically, I think to a number of people, limited number of people, who are thinking along the lines that I just espoused on, that it was a needed decision or was a valid one, it obviously is going to ring true. But to his point also, to a great many people, including a lot of the people who've been attracted to the Republican Party recently, I would agree it's not a good look, for lack of better word.
For those who are just anti-war, this is obviously not going to go across well. For the rest, here's what I've seen in the data. Nobody has any idea how to feel about this.
Yeah.
I mean, that what you're seeing is everyone's breaking on party lines, other than the demo Chris mentioned, the no war demo, which is a large demo nowadays. But you take that aside, all the rest, people are just breaking based on party lines because they don't know how to feel about this. That'll change. If this is short, then Mike, maybe those people will lean a little bit towards, okay, fine, Trump, you did it, good job. And if it's longer, if it's extended, then maybe they lean a little more towards the left. So the proof is going to be in the pudding on this one. This was not a situation where overnight everyone had really, really strong feelings. As a matter of fact, I saw some polls where literally they put side by side Trump's approval and people's feelings towards what just happened, and they were exact. So right now, there's a lot of people who are in wait and see mode, and I hope you're right that they handle this right. right? Because then it won't be as big of a liability. It could even be a positive for Republicans, but there's a lot of risk.
Yeah. If I can make one more analogy based on what you said earlier, you're talking about the Pritzker ads on TV. I think Pritzker's already made the calculation he's going to win. And he's, again, like everything he's done the last 8 years, is so focused on the presidency. And I think there's a certain amount of that calculus going into this with the president and his advisors. That the long range is really not Iran, it's China, right? And, from bottlenecking the Strait of Hormuz, I think there's a certain element of the long game in this as well. Again, I know it sounds like I'm justifying this, and I'm not. That's not what I'm doing.
There's geopolitics at play for sure. Yeah, and as I said, everything I've seen when it comes to Iran's exports, obviously they're not a trade partner here with the U.S. So
right.
I'm not saying I advocate for this because I don't do geopolitics. That is not my wheelhouse. But if somebody wanted to hurt China, I would imagine this is a way to do it. So again, that's not way above my pay grade, but it's a solid point.
Well, and I think, I am not an expert on foreign policy. I don't really know, much about it, but I feel like, you think back over the course of the past, the first Trump term and, what we've experienced so far in this one, and you have these people that just go after him on foreign policy like you wouldn't believe, and like, oh, Trump's the stupidest person to ever be in the White House and he has no idea what he's doing. And they've been proven wrong again and again and again and again, and they don't learn. We're supposed to be in like World War 27 right now, but we're still, in between World War II and World War III. We haven't gotten to we never had World War III, and I don't think we're going to have it in this administration.
Butler, I told you this in private. I'm going to tell you this in public since you said the same thing. I think you think too much about what stupid people think about Trump. I'll just be honest with you. Like, we all know the human scum out there. They're like, oh, Trump's bad, everything he does. We know that.
Not just that. I mean, people like Jeb Bush, Mike Pence. I mean, across the board, neocons.
Jeb Bush supports this. All of the neoconservatives are coming out in favor of this.
That was Michael's point. Hold on, that was Michael's point, Chris. So you're saying that was his point that he was making. You gonna finish your point, Chris? Go ahead.
Oh, I thought Michael was finishing his point.
No, I'm saying you were just proving Michael's point. So I was giving Michael a point there as taking a point away from you. That's all.
Well, the point is like Butler's talking about the human scum not liking what Trump does. And now I'm saying that the stupid people are now liking what Trump does with like Jeb Bush. He's a stupid person.
I don't think anybody is following your point, Chris, but it was a good, valiant effort. Way to go. Anybody else have thoughts on Iran and the impact?
I just have one in general about all of it that's going on at the federal level. I feel like, we get to this point because we're so reliant on those checks and balances and the three branches of government and some people have concluded, already that has fallen apart. And I think others, are skeptical of it. And then others, I still firmly believe in it, but we haven't been really seeing that, active. And if it has been, it's kind of been then criticized for enacting that the branch of government. And that's what all this relies on. We've relied on that fact that there were these three branches of government that worked independently, and you always had faith that no matter what, it was the right decision. And I think as that starts to fall apart and people start to lose trust in that system, we see this divide. And even, here you start to see that divide because we're seeing those lines are blurred now. And I just really wish those that were elected for the positions in the branch of government that they are elected to be in and represent would really stand firm and lead in those areas. And then we could restore that trust in all those branches of government and that they would function correctly. So I just think it, is applicable to this situation, but so many other things that are going on at the federal level.
Yeah, government's supposed to have checks and balances, and we see it in Illinois. A lack of checks and balances is leading to bad policy for the people of the state. So you're right.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go back to Illinois. We have survived the federal talk. I'm very excited to get back to our state and our main topics. You've heard this, and we've scoffed at this and mocked this for a long time, that J.B. Pritzker is such a great administrator, and maybe he is. We've seen no signs of it. But maybe he is, and he's just so focused on running for president that he can't do it. But whether he can't or won't do it is irrelevant. The reality is it's not happening. And we see examples of it over and over. And in the last week, we've seen examples in 3 different departments or divisions or whatever you want to describe in J.B. Pritzker's administration that prove that it continues the incompetence we've seen from this governor and his leadership. Let's start at DCFS. Anybody who's watched our podcast knows that's probably my number one issue at this point. And thanks to Jed Davis for putting this out. Thanks to CBS News for running a story on this. Google it. It's the title is "Couples Say DCFS Wrongfully Took Their Newborns Over False Allegations." They have in the video, they've got the body cam footage from a police officer who took away a newborn from a mother, literally hours after it was born. And this whole story is over. Again, look it up. You absolutely need to read this. You need to watch that video. If you're not bawling by the end like I was, then you're not human. This was over paperwork snafus, basically, and it goes into 2 family stories. They're mentioned in the article, but I still feel weird mentioning them, so I won't do it here. But it goes into 2 family stories of losing their young ones to DCFS over essentially paperwork problems. And we see this with DCFS. They're either too militant in going after families and taking away kids, or they're not involved and don't care. They struggle to find the middle ground, and there's a lot of good caseworkers and a lot of good workers at DCFS who are in that middle ground. So I don't want to just paint everyone with a broad brush, but we keep seeing stories like this over and over and over. And I don't understand how the governor doesn't just stop and say, this is an emergency. I don't know a single Republican who would vote against rushing resources and effort into fixing DCFS. We're fiscally responsible. We're not saying we never want to spend a dollar. You go tell us that, you know what, we have a plan, we've got a budget, we have a vision, this is exactly how it's going to get fixed, here's the reforms that are going to happen, and yeah, we need a little more funding to make it happen. I guarantee you we can put Republican votes on that. But this governor, 7 years in, has not done that. And DCFS continues to fail. Go watch that video of a mother losing her child hours after giving birth. That's inhuman. That should never, ever happen in America, especially over a paperwork snafu. That is not okay. So that's one. Second thing, at the Illinois Department of Corrections, this has been a story, or IDOC has been a story almost every week on this podcast for the last year, the number of problems that have happened there. And yet the left continues to tell us that they're the party. Democrats are the party of taking care of those who are impacted by the criminal justice system. But we keep getting these stories. And this week, the latest story was in the Tribune. Kudos to them for a great story of a young woman who went into prison, went into jail 7.5 months pregnant. And their policy was to induce that baby early, not to let it come to term. I don't know how you have a policy like that, and I don't know how anyone could think that that's okay and humane, but that's not okay. And the Sun Times also had a story about IDOC and how they've spent 7 years failing to improve healthcare for inmates in the facilities. The department only employs 16 full-time physicians across 29 correctional facilities that house more than 30,000 people. In what world is that ever going to work? The budget's for 33 full-time physicians, but they've only hired 16. Again, give us a reason, but this doesn't make sense. You even have the budget. You don't even need to ask for more money, and you haven't done anything about it. We need to do more to take care of our most vulnerable, and yes, that does include the people who are in our jails and prisons. And then the last one, I'll give credit where credit is due. Capital Facts and Rich Miller have been on the story for years when no one else, frankly, has been pushing it, so I will give them credit. IDFPR, it's the Illinois Department of Financial and Professional Regulation. They have been struggling for years to provide licenses for people who need to get licenses in this state. The latest story is by the Center Square. It's a great story about how physician assistants are going to Iowa because it's taking them 6 months to get their license here in this state. And they're not the only ones. We've heard these stories for years about people who need to get a license and can't. These are people who want to work. They want to be productive members of society, and Illinois can't figure out how to get them their license. That is how incompetent our state government is. When you look at all the problems we have in our economy, all the problems we have in our communities, many of them would be fixed by getting people good paying jobs and careers and a future and let them build generational wealth. Here's our chance to do it, and we don't care enough to fix it. As a matter of fact, when this was brought before a committee down in Springfield, the leader, the secretary, Mr. Trado, he said, oh, yeah, we're working on it, and we hope by the end of the year to have this fixed. It's March. You're telling me that this is such a massive problem. Other states have no problem doing this. Iowa, of all places, can get these licenses. Freaking Iowa. But it's going to take us to the end of the year, 10 more months, when, by the way, they've already had years. Enough is enough. The failures under J.B. Pritzker. This is why we're so hard on the Republican candidates for governor, because J.B. Pritzker has got to go. This is not okay. The incompetence is hurting real people. It's ripping apart families. It's forcing people to leave Illinois to go to other states. They go get licensed in Iowa. You think they're coming back? Like, this is a problem, and we created it ourselves. It's not okay. All right, my rant is over. Anybody else have thoughts? Go ahead. Carolyn, go ahead. Since everyone else keeps getting to go first, you can
Okay,
go
I know,
first.
I have probably something to say on all those, but I'll, the licensing in particular. I mean, if you think about this, we struggle enough in Illinois with just keeping kids in the state and being educated here. Now, if they're educated here, they have the qualifications, they've passed the test. Now they can't work in their profession for 6 months. So now, what do you do during those 6 months when you don't have the license to practice in what you just got educated for and spent all that money? I mean, it's just another layer that shows that Illinois is not serious about keeping future generations in this state. I mean, we don't make it affordable, we don't make it easy, and as long as that continues, they're going to keep going elsewhere. And in the licensing also, other states are in licensure compacts together. Illinois doesn't partake in many of those. I mean, what is the difference between getting your license here or getting your license in Wisconsin? Or, there's certain professions, it is the same. And we should be welcoming those that are licensed in Wisconsin or Iowa or Indiana or where, right, come over the border and work in our state, especially in those fields that we really need the healthcare industry in particular. I mean, we make it so difficult that we create our own problems. I mean, this is one that we absolutely are creating.
Yep. Yeah, and it's not okay, because I can't tell you, at least several times a week, I talk to mothers, to fathers who have raised their kids in this state. They live in this state. Their parents lived in this state. The kids even went to school in this state, and they can't get them to stay here to start their family, start their careers. There's a lot of reasons for it. This is one of them. This is not okay. And you feel the pain of this in 20 years, in 30 years, in 40 years. This is why when I evaluate, I feel like I'm being a bad father if I look at all this that we just talked about and I say, well, you know what, Teddy, I'm going to make you grow up here. Because the more that I see this, the more that I say, is there a future for my little boy in this state when we continue to do things like this? The economy is bad now. The fiscal numbers are bad now. Imagine what they're going to be in 20 years when we pay the price for these bad decisions today.
Well, and on top of it, there's people that have jobs that can't take their job because the state is delaying their license, and the job is contingent upon getting that license. So now we're even doubling. Not only, they're willing to stay here, they have that job, but we're like, oh no, sorry, you're way down on the list. So you got to wait 6 months and hope that employer will keep you hanging there for that long. I mean, that's the reality of what's happening.
Yep. Well, and you brought up a good point. The employer, they've got customers they need to serve, clients they need to serve. They can't wait that 6 months, so they probably got to fill that with somebody else. That's a solid point that I haven't heard other people make. Mike, you headed a chamber of commerce. You've got a business background. This is going to drive you crazy.
On so many different levels. I'll start with the whole kids. My kids and my little granddaughter here, that's the light of my life, live about 2 blocks from where I'm sitting. Wonderful, right? My other daughter and fiance just moved back. My son, they're all here. Parents' dream, right? Adult children all move back close to you. And I look at them and I go, why? You talk about your little boy. I go, why? Why? You should move far away from here.
I mean, the reality is, this shouldn't happen, because the reason why your kids move back, I don't want to speak for them, but the reason why some do still come is this state has so many built-in advantages. This should be the jewel of not just the Midwest, but frankly of the country. We have so many advantages between our position in the country, which brings us rail advantages. We've got two major rivers. No other states have that advantage. We've got the Great Lakes. We've got air. We've got ground. And we have
Oil.
one of the best workforces in the entire country because you mix the Midwestern work ethic with the entrepreneurial spirit that comes from our educational institutions in the city. There's just so much about Illinois that says we should be thriving, which is why in some cases people still do come back. But then you look at government does everything it can to screw that up.
Colin, I've given that speech 100 times if I've heard you give it once. I give it to everybody and why they should vote Republican. Because, and I give that exact speech. We should be the richest state in the country. We have it all. We're probably the one state, if you consider all 50 states. Obviously, many of them have an advantage or two. We have them all. You said it. Transportation. We were
a diversified economy. We've got manufacturing. We've got agriculture. We've got even mining.
Like this is oil.
Yeah.
We have oil if we wanted to go get it. I mean, it's crazy. And to tie it back into Pritzker, yes, the most incompetent governor, and it's hard for me to say that considering we had Rod Blagojevich and Pat Quinn, but this has got to be the most incompetent boob, dare I say it, that he is. It's just amazing to me. This is not rational political discussion. It's just me ranting. But yes,
I do it all the time. It's all right.
Me too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we've talked a lot of the licensing problems, but I just want to bring it back to DCFS. Again, Jed Davis for bringing this to light. This is just not okay. These are families. Again, I look at my wife, my little boy, there should be a situation where, I don't know. Well, and this is where I'm going with this. I'm rambling, so let me bring it back. This is why people don't trust DCFS. This is why when a number of Democrats push forward a House Bill 4606 that says a voluntary statewide program for universal newborn home visiting from DCFS, well, that freaks out a lot of people. You should have a situation where DCFS is considered a partner and an ally for families. We should have a situation where government's trying to help because first-time parents, it's scary as heck. If there was something like that, Abby and I went to classes and read books, and we had some experience with my own siblings and her friends and family. We're more prepared than most, and even we probably would have said, "Yeah, okay, we'll take some help." But there's no way on this planet we're taking DCFS into our house because you don't trust them, and that's where we're at right now. It shouldn't be that way. There's so much rehab work to be done there. There's so much work to make sure that it's actually doing the job they need to do, and along the way. We've said this before. Kids are dying. Kids are being ripped away from their houses. They're not getting the support that they need. And these are kids. These are babies. These are little ones. If we can't take care of them, we don't deserve to do anything else in the state. Forget the Bears. I don't give a crap where the Bears go. I don't give a blankety blank where Boeing takes their headquarters. I do, let me be clear. But the reality is if we can't take care of the most vulnerable, the littlest among us, then nothing else matters. Nobody's talking about this. None of the governor candidates are talking about this. This should be the number one issue. Pritzker should be doing press conferences day after day. There should be a portal on his website that says, here are the things that DCFS faces. Here's what we're doing to fix them. And here's our status. Here's our progress. We're at 13%. We're going to keep fighting. It should be a statewide movement where we all pool our resources and get this done. I don't know why it's not that way. It's not okay.
Do you think they have this mindset where, if they admit that, if they say these are the things that we're going to fix that are problems, then it's like they're admitting that they messed up, and they're just like, well, we're 8 years in at this point. We can't admit anything. Just pretend it's not happening. I'm running for president. That's my only thought. That's the only explanation that I can think of.
We've said that before, that at this point, yeah, I mean, Pritzker can't politically because if he admits there's problems with DCFS, that'll haunt him nationally. So you're right, politically, Pritzker can't. But you know what? I expect my governors to be strong leaders who go and do the right thing and actually lead their states. So politically, yes, this would be a bad move by Pritzker. But you know what? You're elected governor. Go lead. I mean, again, I give Rich Miller credit for this. He said governor's own. He's even he's been digging Pritzker, but it's pretty bad if he's digging Pritzker on this. You're the governor. Go be the governor.
Well, the sad part for I think is that they've got super majorities. They've got every statewide office. Like I'm sure they're all expecting to win by double digits because odds are they probably will. So it's like, why don't you just go do something about it? It's not like people are going to be like, "Oh, he did something about DCFS. Better vote him out."
Yeah, you're not wrong. Again,
So
I don't
dumb.
understand why there's no political will here, especially when it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, just along that lines, and I'll stop ranting too. The worst thing about Pritzker is not that he's an incompetent boob. He don't care. I don't think J.B. Pritzker has ever cared about the state, the citizens of this state. All J.B. Pritzker cares about is being president. Sorry.
And listen, Mike, that has been my frustration. Is I actually don't think I'll say it on the record. I don't think he is incompetent. As a matter of fact, I thought he could have been one of our best governors we've ever had because he was positioned to be a pragmatic leader, somebody who actually was a bit bipartisan and just wanted to sort of like that was his background was being sort of like CEO, somebody up there who says best idea wins. Let's bring everybody to the table. Like that's what I wanted out of Pritzker because that's what our state needs, and I think he's capable of doing that. But Mike, you hit the nail on the head because he wants to be president. He's been chasing that instead of being the best governor Illinois has ever had. The train's left the station. It's impossible at this point. He is so partisan that I don't think he could ever turn that around. But this was not the JB Pritzker of day one. The JB Pritzker of day one had all the potential, but because he's been so hyper partisan now for 7 years, I don't think there's any way he could ever change and go back to what he could have been.
I don't. I think you're giving him way too much credit. I mean, you think back to those FBI wiretaps, and what he was saying on those, where he's, calling Blagojevich and please give me something, anything, please. I just want a title. I just want a job, and he's trying to let's rearrange these chairs a little bit so I can get an appointment. I mean, I think that's what he's always been about his entire life is everything was handed to me on a silver platter because I was born into a rich family, never had to work for anything, and he wanted some kind of status. And right now, for the past 8 years, it was governor, and that wasn't good enough. Now he thinks he can be president, so that's what he's going for.
Yeah, and I do hear what you're saying, Michael, and I've known plenty of people in politics who were born on third base and think they hit a triple. So I get what you're saying, but I have also seen some of those people when given a position or when attaining a position, then buckle down and do the hard work. And so I definitely get what you're saying, but I can also think of people who had advantage in life. He's certainly no Pritzker, but let's use Jason Plummer as an example. He had advantages in life between, what he got from his father and the political capital that gave him. But when he got in the state Senate, he worked his butt off. He's hasn't used it as a stepping stone. He's actually gone in there and tried to do good. He's a great example of just because you started with some advantage over the rest of us, it doesn't mean you can't go out there and do some good. Yeah, Pritzker started with way more advantage than any of the rest of us. That, frankly, is why he could have done a whole bunch of good. Instead, he's chosen to, as you said, Michael, think he's owed even more than that. And that's unfortunate because it's the people of Illinois who are paying the price. All right, let's go to our last policy topic, and then we'll get into some quick hits. We got some juicy ones this week. This one we don't have to spend a lot of time on, but I always scratch my head because J.B. Pritzker loves to point to the Site Selection magazine. You see this all the time in their press releases, and he even brings it up in his press conferences and his speeches because it's the only place that it actually has given Illinois high rankings. So he uses it all the time to say how great our economy is and how we're bringing so many businesses when the data doesn't actually back that up. There literally is no other data that says we're bringing in all sorts of business and the economy is thriving. This is the only place. But Pritzker uses it because it's a good metric and people don't tend to dig into it. The media just says, oh, great, and they write the story. But yet again, they do this every year. So here they've come out with it yet again and said Chicago, I think with the 13th straight year that Chicago is the #1 metro for corporate expansion. Illinois is #2 for the 4th consecutive year for corporate expansion. Two things you got to know about this. Number one, go to the website. Check out Site Selection Magazine, their website. It is basically a clickbait farm for states who buy into their platform. Whether we're paying a membership fee or I don't know how it works because there's so many of these for all sorts of industries, but you pay something and then they give you stuff you can use in your speeches and on your website to say, the Georgia Metro is the greatest ever. Texas is doing awesome. New Hampshire is killing it. Illinois is doing amazing. Just again, look at their website. It's literally what they do. So then you take those headlines and you say, look how amazing Illinois is. Nothing else backs it up, but that's what they use. Wirepoint's also pointed out a really good point that for this article, for this ranking, they use just one number, the raw total of new projects in a metro, meaning it goes from Naperville to Indiana to Chicago. It's the whole metro, and it has to be either $1 million, 20 new jobs, or 20,000 feet of space. That's the only metric they use. So we brought in a bunch of new projects, but in many cases it was to replace businesses who had left, but they don't use any of those metrics. So it's a junk rating, but it gives Pritzker and Johnson a way to say, look, see, everything's amazing. It's another situation where our governor continues to gaslight us. And listen, I want leaders who are more positive about our state. I'm sick and tired of Republicans who nonstop run down our state. I've said this 100 times. So I'm not asking Pritzker to say everything's horrible. But you take it too far, you are gaslighting people. You say everything's amazing. That's also not true. Let's be realistic and serious about the problems we face, because we do face problems. And then say, but we can do it. We can do this together. You can be positive while still addressing the problems we face. But with Pritzker, it's all just the positive because he wants to be president. And that's the definition of gaslighting. He's trying to make us believe things that aren't true. And he's using fake data here to try to prove his arguments.
Maybe we should all buy some domain names and then give each other like fake awards.
People do it, man. It's done
Pat
all
each
the
other
time.
on the back.
It's done all the time, man. There's so many of these newspapers, these magazines, they reach out to us all the time. Where it's like, for X, we will sponsor or we will headline you and give you an award and say you're the greatest political consultants of all time. For just $500, you'll be the headliner of our next event or our magazine. This is done in every industry. It's part of the current economy. It's content marketing in essence. So I get it, but it's also not necessarily true.
It's
ahead,
one
Carolyn.
thing to do
Go ahead, Carolyn.
I was just going to say it would be nice if they actually found the solutions to what they're actually proposing versus just putting out there, spending the time, of creating the fake survey or populist vote and actually put the solutions forward. I mean, I'd be better off with saying, we're number 10 in the country, but here's what we're going to do to get to number 1. I'd rather hear that story.
100%.
All right,
Michael, go ahead, Mike.
Doesn't pass the smell test, right? I mean, if you have half a brain in your mind, you can look and see and know that that's not true, right?
I mean, we're going to get to our quick hits next, and the first 2 topics are going to directly contradict this exactly. And our last topic, where we talked about how people can't get licenses to go work. I mean, this doesn't, as you said, pass the smell test, but even more than that, like it doesn't pass the eye test. Nobody believes this. Go out there, even ask Democratic voters. They're not going to tell you the economy is thriving, that businesses are locating here. Even his base doesn't agree with it. So, but you know what? It looks good in a press release. It looks good on a TV ad. And there's no Republican who's capable of challenging him, so he gets away with it.
But I do believe we're top at this. I mean, I do believe that for all the reasons you said, Colin, that Chicago and Illinois are at the top of the list of when site selection is there, but we just never make it to the top. So, I mean, I think we're in that conversation of the top 5 when people around the country are trying to pick a new site. But, why don't we get to number 1 is really the question to be asked, because we're not getting there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have every advantage. There's no excuse.
Yeah.
I mentioned it. News you can use. We're going to go into it because the first couple topics directly contradict our last one. So that's by design. Imagine that. That's how we've laid this out. So let's get into our quick hits, our news you can use, and talk about some of the things you all, as our audience, ought to be talking about on the campaign trail, on your social media accounts. Pop it in an email. Raise some money for your organizations or your campaign. Talk at the dinner table if you talk politics. This is what this section is about. And we just talked about the economy, so let's talk about this. As I was finishing the agenda for today's podcast, it came across the newswire that we're going to have another 1,139 layoffs of former Discover employees from their location in Riverwoods. I want to make sure I'm being honest here. So just to be clear, of those nearly 1,200 people, well, over 1,100 people, of those, let me give you the right numbers, 600 of them roughly live in Illinois, and about 500 live outside of Illinois. So just to be clear, we're talking about 600 jobs lost in the state of our residents, but another 500 jobs lost that were in this state. That's a big deal. Now, this is because of the merger between Discover and Capital One, but the reality is Virginia-based Capital One saw no reason to continue to keep those employees in Illinois. If we had a better business environment, we had a better environment for workers, you might see them be willing to keep more of those employees, more of those positions on the payroll. So, yeah, this is because of the merger, but we could have lost way fewer jobs if we actually had an environment that supported growth amongst these businesses and jobs and careers and opportunities. It did not have to be this bad. As always, I pause for a second. If you've got thoughts, jump fast. If not, I'll go to the next one. All right, here's the next one. So Springfield puts out regularly their report. It's from the legislature. It's COGFA, is what we say, or some people have even different acronyms for it. I'm not cool enough to be able to pronounce those, but it's the Commission on Government Forecasting and Accountability, and they've released their February reports. And some people report on it, some people don't. But of course, they missed the headline, which when I pulled up the report was very easy for me to find, which was this. Even in the legislature's report, which remember, the legislature is run by Democrats, even in their report, they've admitted that Illinois' economic growth has lagged the national pace since 2018. Since then, our state's annual growth rate has been 1.2% below the U.S. We're at 1.6. The U.S. is 2.8. So since 2018, we've got a lot of people who said, oh, it was COVID, or it's just this year or that year. Now, this has been a trend now for almost a decade in this state, where we have lagged the rest of the country, and there's no reason for that. We've said it over and over in this podcast. We have so many potential opportunities in this state that we don't take advantage of. We should not. Our GDP, our growth rate never should be lagging other states. Our economy should be thriving. Yeah, we might have other problems, but it shouldn't be our economy, not with all the advantages we have from Chicago throughout the rest of the state. It's not okay. And even when you get to the numbers, which, by the way, they admitted that Illinois has brought in even more revenue. Now it's up to 1.3 billion more than was expected, but still the Dems want more, so they're going to want more tax increases. But after that, and this Cat Facts highlighted this, so I'll give them credit. They pointed to the downside, which is corporate income tax receipts are falling another 6.6%, another 200 million. When these businesses leave Illinois or don't come to Illinois or downsize or expand in other states, it has a direct impact on the people who live in this state, on the working families in this state. I'm not pro-business because I give a crap about the actual brick and mortar business. I'm pro-business because I'm pro-worker. If you want to have good paying jobs in the state, you've got to have places for them to work. And you see here, this has a huge impact on our state's budget because if we're not bringing it in from corporate income tax receipts, we got to raise taxes on everybody else who is left. The less that we invest in building up our economic climate and our business climate and support small businesses and manufacturers and farmers, the more it's working families who've got to pay the bill. This is a problem. I keep saying it. We got to do something about it. And oh, by the way, after hearing those stats, go tell me that Site Selection Magazine is right, that we're bringing in more businesses than anywhere else in the whole universe. Yeah, okay. Tell me that's right. All right, let's keep going down the list of problems. Illinois has the highest total tax rate in the U.S. Lane's going to bring up a map up on screen. He's had a pretty good week this week, a pretty easy week, not having to bring stuff up on screen. So let's make him do a little work. He's going to bring up a map that shows that Illinois is 51st, because they also include D.C. Illinois is 51st in the whole country when it comes to our total tax rate. We are the highest, 16.87%. Is what our effective tax rate is on the average household, almost 17%. Below us, there's 5 different states in the 14s, and then we're all the way up at almost 17. It's not like it's, close. By the way, from 50 to like 40, 35, each state is really close to each other, and then there's a giant leap to Illinois. We don't make this up. The data is real. The tax burden in this state is gigantic, and that's a huge part of the cost of living crisis that families are facing in Illinois. Nobody's got thoughts on that. Somebody give me a here. Come on.
I gotta say they all tie together. I mean, the business is leaving, they can't get people the next with housing. I mean, it all ties together and it goes back to, obviously we're talking before about the lack of leadership. When there's no leadership that's actually going to admit that there's problems and find those solutions, this is where we're at. And it just continues to go. And if you're making things up, you're not admitting that there's problems and you're not leading to solve them.
Collin, I'm shocked.
You're shocked? These numbers shock you?
I'm shocked.
I like it. All right, well done, guys. Give me a little bit of a break so I could give my breath a breather, or my voice a breather. All right, let's talk about some bad bills. Let's talk about Senate Bill 2412. This is, I will say, this is from Ron Villavolam, that this is probably well-meaning. And he gets it from Alexei, the Secretary of State, who's pushing this hard. I believe they are well-meaning with this. I don't believe they intend the outcome. But this is what happens when you write legislation badly. This is what happens when you don't vet that legislation. This is what happens when you don't bring everybody to the table to negotiate. Heck, even maybe some Republicans to actually have a voice in the process. This is what you get. You get bills that are written in such a way. Their intention is to help seniors not have to pay more on their car insurance. The intention of this bill is, this is the way it's written, that once you get past 50, they can't use your age to impact what you pay for your insurance. However, because of the way it's written, here's what will actually happen. And the Illinois Insurance Association executive director, Kevin Martin, came out in Cranes and said exactly the same thing. That the way that it's written, because you won't let age be used, it can't be used to lower their bills either. And people over 50 tend to pay less, actually, on their car insurance for their auto insurance. It's younger people who tend to pay more. It's males who tend to pay more because we are the more reckless drivers. I love my Challenger, and yes, I do love to drive fast. I will pay higher insurance gladly because I should, because I'm in a category that should be paying more. That's how it works. But the way this bill is written, seniors will not be able to get those discounts because they are safer drivers, but the bill was written badly. So this bill will hike auto insurance premiums on seniors and on women. We should be talking about that as Republicans because that's part of cost of living. You raise their auto insurance rates, that is going right to their bottom line.
I mean, isn't this like, I don't know, I just feel like it's common sense, like of how insurance works, that if you're higher risk, you pay more. If you're lower risk, you pay less. If you live in a neighborhood where there's more crime, you pay more. Like, it's just like, because it's more likely that you're actually going to use that insurance, right? That you're going to cash that in and say, "Hey, my vehicle was stolen. I wrecked my vehicle. I need a new vehicle." Like, that's why the rates are what they are.
Yeah, and
so
the reason why
everybody's just going to pay more if you don't allow them to calculate for risk.
And the reason why credit rating is used is the higher your credit rating, then typically the more responsible an individual. Not always, but on average, that is the case. If somebody cares about their credit rating enough to get it higher, then that's somebody who cares enough to protect their vehicle, that cares enough to not get in an accident. There's a reason why these metrics are used, but it's being spun as racist and ageist and sexist. And so now, as Michael said, we're all going to pay higher insurance rates because they wanted a press release that sounded good. All right, let's keep going. Another, I just close it out. Another bad bill here. So actually, the bill isn't bad. I'll be honest. I don't know enough about SNAP to tell you if this bill is one-eyed sponsor or support if I was in Springfield. But on its face, it looks like something we should be talking about. Senate Bills 3266 and 3372 by a whole bunch of far-left Dems, by the way, that say, hey, you know what? We should actually use different cards for SNAP. We need to use smart card chips instead of sweat cards because there's fraud with sweat cards. It only costs us $50 million, and this change could help avoid nearly 90,000 fraudulent transactions using SNAP. They did this in California. This is in the press release by these far-left Dems. I'm not saying this. They're saying this, that they did this in California, and they saw, oh, shoot, I lost it. They saw a significant decrease in California. I lost it in my thing. Oh, here we go. 83% fraud went down when they did this in California. So, okay, sounds good. But here's the kicker. These are the same people who on DC said, hey, you know what? There's fraud in SNAP and we should do something about that so we could protect resources for the people who actually need SNAP. These same people said, you hate poor people and you're racist and there's no fraud. What are you talking about? And now they're actually admitting, oh yeah, actually there is fraud. And by the way, there's something easy we could have done about it years ago, but we just never did. This is what drives me crazy about Illinois. Yeah, okay, it's common sense. Let's get the fraud out so that the resources can go to single mothers and families who are struggling, lower income individuals, disadvantaged communities. Yes, we want them to have their SNAP. So let's stop letting fraudsters steal the money. That is not controversial. That is not partisan. That is not extreme. The extreme position is, oh, let's pretend nothing's the problem, and then, yeah, we'll just keep burning through cash.
I mean, I think it's the same reason why all of our banks switched us over from, swiping to all of our debit cards having a chip in them because it's more secure. So I think this is like common sense. And it's like kind of refreshing, honestly, that, occasionally there's like an adult in Springfield that files a bill that like is logical. Like, wow.
I can tell you, I sat in a room when Peter Roscom was in Congress, where he spoke to a group and he talked about literally this, that the witch cards have higher fraud rates. I mean, this was like a decade ago. Like, this was known. This has been known. Some states have done something about it, but of course not in Illinois. We'll just, whatever, fraud. It's cool. Taxpayers can just keep paying more taxes and inflation can keep going up and we can just keep paying higher prices for goods, all because we didn't want to solve a very simple problem.
So you want the cynic in me?
We haven't gotten that already?
No. This is CYA, total CYA.
Yeah, probably.
This is in response. Like you said, you said it yourself. Why didn't they consider this or talk about this when Peter Roscom suggested this, 20 years ago?
Well, it's more like 10, but yeah.
Long?
Thanks for making me feel old.
Long? Yeah, of course. This is just in response to Minnesota and other places. That's all it is.
Yeah. For me, I will choose to see the positive and say they're doing the right thing, whether their intentions are good or not. I don't care. Let's actually.
Well, probably because Trump called them out for their fraud numbers in Illinois on Snap, and they said we can't admit that he's wrong or give him the data, but we'll kind of quietly fix it.
Yes.
No. Yeah.
All right, almost done.
Oh, go ahead, Carolyn.
No, I was wondering that same thing, if this is their response to try to keep their funding in place, or, because I don't think this is the only place that they have an issue with SNAP. So I don't know that this is going to solve their percentage problem in being the worst state in the
Could be
country.
doing the right thing for the wrong reasons, but
yeah, still. I mean, Carolyn's point is valid. We got a lot more to do. Otherwise, there's a big price tag coming when it comes to SNAP. So this is a step. But we're going to need a heck of a lot more. And by the way, this is just a bill that was filed. So let's see if they actually do this or if it's just filed and then they move on. All right, a couple more things, then we'll close out the episode. We keep hearing from groups that either want us to believe that crime's not actually an issue anymore, or from people who just want to paper over the problems that crime's not an issue. You politicians that are talking about it, you're wrong, you shouldn't. Somebody recently, I won't use names, put out a poll from the realtors that did indeed talk about housing and how that's a huge problem. And Chris has been saying that for a while. I've been saying that for a while. So I'm with the realtors on that. But it actually had crime still tied for number one, tied for first with that in Chicago. And this person's like, see, crime's not resonating. What are you talking about? Whatever. Anyways, why is crime resonating? Because yes, you may tell us the stats are better, but people don't feel safer. And why don't they feel safer? Well, situations like this, that on the CTA, aggravated assaults and batteries have reached a 24-year high. It isn't just, we hear this all the time, oh, there's a few high-profile cases of young women being lit on fire. It's not just the high-profile cases. The numbers back this up. This is the Sun-Times. This isn't anybody, the Center Square putting this out. This is the Sun-Times that it's admitting this, that this upward trend has continued, that these crimes are up 33% over the same period last year. Looking at data going back to 2001. And by the way, they said it could have been even earlier. These numbers could be higher than numbers prior to 2001. That's just when they had the data. It's a problem, and yet you hear mayoral spokesman for Johnson saying, well, we're just going to keep doing a holistic approach. The community activists are saying, well, we'll just do our violence interruptions because that's worked so well. It's continuing to put our head in the sand instead of actually addressing the problem. All right, I want to end with some good news. So let's use some good bills. I want to give credit to the Senate Republicans. And let's see here. John Curran, Erica Harris, Sally Turner, Chris Bulkema, Craig Wilcox. They've sponsored, between them, not all of them did all of them, but between all of those, they sponsored 5 different bills, all targeting making things more affordable for home buyers and for homeowners. Center Square has a good story on this. They also put out a press release covering this. So check out either of those if you want to know more. I'll give you quickly the bill numbers. 39, these are all Senate bills: 3959, 3782, 3781, 3849, 3848. We're talking about a home credit for first-time home buyers. We're talking about stopping property foreclosure for those who have failed to pay their property taxes, because Illinois is the only state that's still doing that, even though the Supreme Court said it's illegal. We're talking about making your real estate property tax credit refundable. That means if you don't pay taxes in a certain year, that credit doesn't just go away. You actually get a refund for the amount of the credit you didn't use. That's going to directly help lower income individuals. It's going to directly help, in some cases, business owners who are getting shellacked one year and they're not paying taxes that year because they had to pay out of pocket to pay for their employees, kind of like what I had to do for years during COVID. This is going to help the very people we want to help in Illinois. Great bill. Next one here, 3849. They want to tie your homestead exemption to CPI, because people don't realize the homestead exemption we're getting in Illinois has not grown at all. So as inflation grows, as our taxes go up, that exemption has stayed the same. So this would, after 2027, actually tie it to CPI. That's a good bill. And the last one here is, as home insurance premiums are going up, giving people an opportunity to potentially get a tax deduction for that. So these are thoughtful bills. I would love it if they get a hearing down in Springfield. That doesn't often happen with good bills, especially Republican good bills. But I love to see Senate Republicans putting forward an agenda to make life more affordable for working families, especially when it comes to home ownership. Love these bills. Anybody have any quick thoughts? Chris, love that Republicans are actually trying to do something for first-time home buyers.
I'm too focused on Worth around right now.
I actually have a lot
Carolyn,
to say, Collin. I do.
Save this segment for me, will you?
Yeah, I was really excited to see all of these bills filed. I think it's exciting for Republicans to have good bills. It's just a shame that they really never go anywhere. I mean, that one on CPI, there's been like 8 different versions filed, I think several for the past several sessions, and I wish everyone would just focus on one solution, and CPI seems to be it, and then actually get it passed, because that keeps coming up. And the fact that legislators don't talk to each other and file the similar bill in 8 to 10 different forms is really part of the problem. So I'm glad they put these forward. The one thing that stood out to me too, and I'm in a housing readiness committee as well, that we've been talking about, the average age of a first-time home buyer these days is 40. I mean, that was like a shocking number to me. And so I looked it up out of curiosity. In 1996, when I bought my first home, I mean, I was 24, but I looked at what was the average age in 1996. It was 29.
Jeez.
I mean, how crazy is that on where we are in that short period of time, to go from 29 to 40 for the first time home buyer?
That's crazy.
Yeah, so anything we can do to reduce that age, to make it more attainable for people to own homes, I'm all for. I hope they get some movement, but it's unfortunate, just Republicans struggle in getting any movement, even on really, really good bills, because everyone's so busy talking about stuff that really doesn't matter.
Just hearing somebody buying a home at 24 is like foreign to my generation.
Yeah.
And I think that the Republican Party wants to achieve relevancy, notwithstanding all these national issues, which are credible problems that we need to worry about. But notwithstanding any of that, if the Republican Party wants to be viable in this state and nationally, it needs to keep focusing on policies like this, popular policies, good policies that the young generation can hold on to. Because if not, you're going to see a shift in the generation towards either general apathy in politics, and it's going to be the dominion of older people who only get to make your laws, or it's going to be these people are just going to shift to the left, because I think the left has done a better job messaging on the housing issue than the right has, and I think this gives a benefit. This could be an advantage if the Republican Party wanted to actually do something with it.
Yeah, all right. All right, we've gone way over, so thank you guys for sticking with us. Let's close with our OG and Clown of the Week nominations. We always like to have some fun with this. Who do you want to give praise or scorn to? Ideally political, but we always break that rule. But go for it. Have some fun with it.
I want to give an OG, and it goes into, surprisingly policy. And I don't know if it was this week, but there's been some, no, it's actually been a little bit, but there's been some more movement on it that recently is in the Senate, there's a bill, Senate Bill 3855, and it's about keeping engineers in Illinois. And it kind of ties back to, the educate. And I've always been, there used to be Illinois State Scholars, you'd get money, now you get nothing. So we do nothing to keep our kids in this state except charge them 3 times more to just have in-state tuition than the surrounding states. So this is a step in the right direction. I really like it. Again, though, it's a Republican bill, so I don't know if it's going to see a whole lot of movement, but being an engineer and a University of Illinois grad, I'm excited to see that this is specific to in-state schools and engineers. Sorry for my dogs. And then in particular, it ties the DOT into it. And if they are employed by them, and we need more engineers to actually get the roads done. So this bill is a really, really good bill, and I hope it goes.
Yeah, I gave it kudos not that long ago too, so we're on the same page. I very much like that bill as well. Come on, guys, let's finish strong. What do you guys got?
I got a lot. So first clown of the week is Donald Trump for getting us into this war in Iran. Second clown of the week is Lindsey Graham, who has decided it's now a good idea that we need to start bombing Lebanon in addition to bombing Iran. Lindsey Graham's never seen a war that he didn't like. I think he gets high off the smell of dead bodies or something like that. It's very despicable. Lindsey Graham needs to be thrown out of office. Pete Hegseth for saying that this war could go on for up to 8 weeks. Other sources, including Politico, are saying the administration's reporting this war could go on to September. If that happens, you're going to see a very unhappy Chris around that time. Fox News, they released a poll this week that said it was a 50-50 split. Half the country likes the war, the other half doesn't. Complete outlier poll. No other poll indicates that. And I think the sample size was like R+7 or some nonsense like that. So obviously not a great poll. Last clown of the week is Eye Patch McCain, Dan Crenshaw. He lost his primary. Pack watch on Dan Crenshaw. He was a terrible congressman. A joke. I believe Trump actually endorsed him, so it's bad for Trump's endorsement that this guy lost. Nobody saw this guy losing. He lost. Dan Crenshaw, you are my specific clown of the week. My OGs, my boy Henry Cuellar, he was facing another primary challenge down in southern Texas. He pulled it off. They come to snuff the rooster. You know he ain't going to die. Henry Cuellar, that's my boy. Pardoned by President Trump and completely bamboozled the president. Love him for that. And my final OG of the week is our American servicemen and women stationed overseas and stationed at home who may be deployed to Iran and the Middle East in the coming weeks. I encourage all of you to pray for them, including those American servicemen and women who have died fighting this war in Iran. It's tragic and it's sad, and the longer this goes on, the worse it's going to get. So thank you.
All right, Chris fired up. Finally, 2 hours in. Anybody else have anyone that want to get thrown in?
Yeah, my clown, of course, would be Pritzker again. But the I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Interesting thing happened last week up in the Chicago suburbs that I think is I kind of think it's history. 24 high schools hosted primaries, legitimate primaries. Monica Gordon, along with the Chicago Bears, put together the registered kids at these high schools, and they voted. There's about 1,600 votes cast in this primary in these 24 high schools around the city and the suburbs that I don't know that anybody's aware of, and I just find that troubling and interesting at the same time.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys were aware of that.
I saw something, but I certainly appreciate your thoughts on it. I can see the other side of it too. I love getting young people involved in the political process, but I do understand your concerns.
Yep.
I'll go since Michael seems to be asleep at the wheel over there. My OGs, just congratulations to some of the new Republican leadership on the Senate side. Obviously, there's been some changes since some bad bills that were filed on the Republican side. So there was a resignation, and now some people are moving up. Jason Plummer is now the caucus chair. Sally Turner is the assistant Republican leader. Chapin Rose is now the minority caucus whip. So congratulations to you three, and we've got big expectations for you. Also, congratulations or kudos. New applications are now open for the Illinois K-9 Memorial license plate. I love that. I already got my White Sox license plate. Otherwise, I'd seriously consider getting this one. I know a number of people have worked on that. I know our good friend Sharon, this has been close to her heart. Erica Harris, this was something she pushed forward. So, really cool program. And if you're so inclined, go on the Secretary of State's website and get yourself a police canine license plate. My last OG, DJ Moore, got traded today as I was preparing the agenda. I've always loved DJ. This last year, it seemed like after he got paid and after Rome and some of the other pass catchers took more of his touches, he seemed a little more disinterested than I would have liked. But he's still an awesome human. I wish him the best. He got traded to the Buffalo Bills. So DJ, thank you for everything and wish you big success in Buffalo. I'll keep going if nobody else has anything. I've just got an in memoriam. This is not an OG or clown, but Hawthorne Racecourse filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. And as some of you know, horse racing's big in my family. My dad was a jockey. People wonder how the heck I turned out 6'3", but hey, the mailman was tall. And grew up on a horse farm. My wife and I got married at Arlington Park. It's just something that's always been special to us. So just seeing the continued decline of horse racing in Northern Illinois is a sad thing. Hopefully Hawthorne can come back from this, but definitely it's an industry in serious decline, and it's just sad to see. My clowns, I'll keep going. Yet again, second week in a row that Russell Lissow from the Daily Herald has provided me a clown. This time I'm going to Jim Martyr, who was written up here just a week ago, for repeating that there's a deep state network and Donald Trump is dismantling the deep state and he backs those efforts. And it's not a conspiracy theory. You haven't done your homework if you think that it is. And just read the story. It goes on and on. Credit to his opponent. Vician, is it Gary Vician, right? Hopefully I'm not right. Yeah, Gary Vician. Actually sounded like an adult in the room in that interview. I don't have a horse in that race, but certainly if I lived in the district based on this one article, I'd be voting against Martyr. Listen, he's a nice guy, but he's run for office a few thousand times, and based on an article like this, I think it's time for the Republican Party to move on to somebody more electable. Here we go. The city's watchdog has reported that they could not get the city's lawyers to give them certain records. So then they filed a anonymous FOIA, and they were able to get those records through an anonymous FOIA. So literally, the city's watchdog, who's retiring because she's had enough, the inspector general, could not get records that were supposed to be by law given to her. But then she filed the FOIA under a fake name, and oh, magically, look, they got the records. Chicago, transparency in Brandon Johnson's administration is not a thing. Sticking in Chicago, there was a disabled Army veteran at Alexei Giannoulias' Real ID super site who told the staff he had a medical emergency, that they needed to go to the bathroom. They had PTSD, and multiple people refused to let him use their staff bathroom. There wasn't a public bathroom, and he ended up having an accident. This shouldn't happen. This shouldn't happen to anybody, let alone somebody who served this country. But we see this a lot in government where it's not really their job to serve the public, even though it's actually their job to serve the public. I'd love to see a culture change. At minimum, take care of our veterans. They got to go to the bathroom. Give them the key. Let them go to the bathroom. This is ridiculous. I'm almost done. Chris Welsh is my next one here for, again, being the most hyper-partisan Speaker of the House we have ever seen. Just this last week, yet another working group that he has created in the House on AI. Sounds like a great thing to have a working group on. We should get everybody involved. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There's 23 positions, and they're all only going to be Democrats. Chris Welsh, as the Speaker of the House, is not actually the Speaker of the House. He is only the Speaker of the House Democrats. I understand they have a supermajority, but your job is to be the Speaker of the House. Just this last week, there was a story about the 340B drug pricing program. And at the very end of it, in that story in Capitol News, Chris Welsh said, we're studying this, and next steps are, we'll decide in the Democratic caucus what we're going to do. Never like we'll decide what we're going to do in the House, or we'll have negotiations between people who have expertise in this area. No, we Democrats will decide what happens. Chris Welsh has no interest in bipartisanship. He proves it over and over and over. Last one here, I'm going to get myself in trouble, but I do not care. Kristi Noem, goodbye. Listen, when there are good Republicans, I have their back. When there are bad Republicans, I will call them out. Kristi Noem never should have gotten the job in the first place. We didn't need her parading around the streets of Chicago, taking social media photos and trying to be, what do they call her, something Bambi or something Barbie. This hurts the Republican Party. This hurts, frankly, our government. It certainly doesn't help the immigration challenges we have in this state. I don't even know this person who is replacing her, but I don't care. It could only go up from where we were. Glad to see Kristi Noem gone. She gets one of my Clown of the Week nominations. With that, we've gone way over, so let's do our closing thoughts and let's get everybody back on with their days. We'll let our guests go last. So, Michael and Chris, you guys go first. Michael, I'll have you kick us off.
All right. Well, what do we got? 12 days, 11 days if you're watching this now until the primary. So it's time to get your voters out. And I guess with as sleepy as this primary has been, maybe try to convince a few more voters too in the final stretch. And we'll be back next week, and it's going to be interesting to see how these primaries play out.
One of these days, we'll let Michael and Chris get a little sleep. Chris, final thoughts.
You cannot instill change unless you put in the work. One of the reasons why I still am working in the same field I'm working right now is not just because people think I'm good at it. My boss apparently thinks I'm deserving of a salary, a very minimum salary, but a salary nonetheless, of course, is because you can actually, if you work hard enough, you actually can instill change. And you're not going to get anywhere just by sitting on your couch and complaining all the time. For a long time, I've had the mentality of if you don't vote, you can't bitch. And I still believe that till this day. So in these last 12 of 11 days, for those of you watching, until Election Day, put in all of the work that you can. Do not leave anything on the table. Because as politics frustrates you, as our government frustrates me and the stupid things they do, the way you can change that is by putting in the work and getting involved in the political process. Don't let your campaign be dictated by, I made some posts on social media. Don't let your campaign be dictated by, I told my friends to tell people to vote for me. That's not how campaigns work. They're won by hard work and determination, and that's what actually changes things in this country. So I encourage you all to work as hard as you can these next 12 days and to pray for the souls of the American servicemen and women who have perished overseas in this entanglement in Iran. Thank you, and have a wonderful weekend if you get a weekend.
All right, Mike, we really appreciate you bringing your expertise. You had some awesome thoughts this week. Closing thoughts from you.
I was kind of thinking about what Chris said, and yeah, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely, that's what I would just reiterate what Chris said, is that if we want to affect change, we got to work hard, and that's what kind of I think keeps me, the idea that I just don't hate the situation that the community, the state, the city that I grew up in is the way it is, and we just got to keep fighting to change.
As much as I gave Chris Welsh a lot of grief before, I'll give him credit for this. He's right when he says winners do the work. So you want to go win, go do the work. All right, Carolyn, your final thoughts. You get the final word.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and I kind of do it over and over again. In particular, we need to stop just knocking each other down and being those keyboard warriors on social media. And we kind of talked about it earlier. We need leaders. I mean, we need leaders that are going to get stuff done. We don't need people that are going to just rip people down. And there's a lot of good legislation out there, but there's a lot of really bad legislation. And sometimes, that's easier. So we tend to focus on that. If leaders could just lead and actually find what will solve those problems and keep our state moving forward and get people back here and keep people in this state, that's what we truly need, our leaders to take on those challenges, make the good decisions, make the tough decisions, and forget about those keyboard warriors that are there just ripping them down.
Yeah. That's a good place to end this. I won't add more thoughts because we're already over our time. I'll simply say thank you to our panel. Thank you to Lane Davis, our producer, for putting in the work like we talk about. Next week will be, I think, if I could do math correctly, our last episode before the primary. So we'll do a preview of some of the big races you should be watching on election night. So look forward to that. We'll catch you all next week on the Smoke-Filled Room.